From Unity of Houston, Texas, this is the Awakened Life with Reverend Howard Caesar. Unity is a non-denominational spiritual community providing a positive, practical, and progressive approach to Christianity. Let's join the service in progress now with Reverend Howard Caesar.
I have always felt that one of the most important roles as a minister of a church is to teach and to love and to inspire people into being all that they are created to be, and which they may not realize what they have come to be. And actually, that's our mission statement here, to teach, love, and inspire people into being all that they were created to be in the mind of God. And so it's important, I think, to keep in front of us and each other and oneself the truth of who we are, and what we are, that we are a light in the world. And for various reasons, living in the world, there are a lot of distractions and a lot of things that we bump up against, that the world can get the best of us. And at times, the world can dim our light. And sometimes the world can seem like it's covered up the light that is in us. I think one of the most important verses in all of Scripture, really, is where Jesus said, "You are the light of the world." He said, "I am the light of the world," but he said, "You are too." He included that. That's very important for you, because it really says that, you're here not just to get through this life, but you actually have something that you bring of God and of the God nature that is inherent in you as a creation of God and as a child of God. And you have a role in that. And so moving through your consciousness in this life is the awareness that there is the very, very light of God, and you have a sense of a mission to share that. He continued to say, following "You are the light of the world," he said, "A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. And neither do men light a candle and put it under a basket, but they put it on a candlestick, and it gives light to all that are in the house. Let your light so shine that you glorify your Father in heaven." So it sheds light for all who are in the house. And what house is he talking about? The house of humanity, the house of this world that we all share. And we're all brothers and sisters. And we are intended to bring the light to all, because we're all in a network, really, in which we're connected and interconnected, whether we realize it or not. And so it's important. And I like to say then that you are here and I am here to remember that we are a light. And we are here to learn to be more of a light. And we are here to be in the process of removing all that might stand in the way of our light shining as we take on various ideas and thoughts and beliefs and opinions that are not accurate, that are untrue, that are false, and basically reduce the light from coming through to us. The most natural thing for all of us as a child of God is to be light, and to be a light, and let that energy of light shine through. But as I say, we often cover it up. The mystic Meister Eckhart said, and I return again and again to what he said because it's so powerful for me. He said, "Every man is an inlet and may become the outlet of all there is in God." And it's important for us to believe that and understand that. And that's what Jesus was saying also. Every person is an inlet and may become the outlet of all there is in God. And if we are all an inlet and we're not demonstrating a wide sense of an outlet, then we must be blocking that flow in some way. And that's part of our progression as a spiritual being, is to recognize and become aware of where we're blocking and where we can begin to open again, so that we can really be all that we're created to be, and be a vessel through which the light is shining all the brighter. So another metaphor that I like to use is the idea of a dam. A dam is something that man has created to block the flow of a river. And every river has its source, and the river carries this fresh, bubbling water from its source. And the most natural thing for a river is to flow, all right? And a dam is that which blocks the flow, and it obstructs the flow of water. It restricts it. And I'm not talking to you as an environmentalist. I'm talking to you as a metaphor. Something, in terms of a dam, something unnatural, something foreign, and something man-made has been constructed to block the natural flow and restrict the nature of its intended purpose, okay? And so all of us have access to the river of life, all right? And all of us are an inlet for the river of life. But to what degree do we have an outlet? And the outlet is dammed in varying degrees based on where we are in our consciousness. And we all have a dam built to some extent, okay? There isn't anyone who isn't, or we wouldn't be here, because that's part of what we're learning here. We are living by trial and error. It's okay to make mistakes, people, to realize there are things that don't work, and then choose again. That's part of the process of growth. And so that's why we don't label anyone a sinner because they've made a mistake. We all came into this world to make a mistake here and there, but then to choose again. That's the process, all right? So you're not a sinner, you're an overcomer. We're all overcomers, and that's the process. And we're all in the process of healing ourselves and healing our consciousness. And so I use this idea of the dam as an example of what happens to us spiritually. We have God, we have this source of all that is good, and the true source is of love and life and peace and joy and abundance, and this source is seeking to pour itself in and through us into this world. It's in Galatians, as we said earlier, where it talks about the fruits of the Spirit. We have the Spirit of God in us, and the fruits of the Spirit include love and peace and joy and patience and gentleness and self-control and different things like that that we expressed in our scriptural. And so it's real, and its will of this Spirit and this light is to stream through us. But again, each of us has, to a certain extent, built a dam. Now, you can call this flow that wants to come through us, you can refer to it as light, you can refer to it as power, you can refer to it as love, you can refer to it as life energy, whatever it is that you want to, it's all God, really. But God is ready to come rushing, pouring, streaming through you as a vessel to renew, to uplift, to heal, and transform, to mold and make us as we are held to be, really, in the mind of God, as we make choices based on our free will. And so there's the wonderful story that says it so well in the Gospel of John, where Jesus meets up with a Samaritan woman at the well, and it was rare for Jewish men or any man to talk to a woman alone at a well. It was like kind of forbidden, but that took place. Jesus, kind of pushed through a lot of those things. And so he's conversing about drinking the water. And you remember the story, and Jesus speaks to her about another kind of water, that there is living water. And so Jesus tells her, whoever drinks of this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. And then he says, but the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up from everlasting life. And so it's like, just imagine the idea of a fountain of life, an energy that wants to pour through you, as we break down the dam that we have built unconsciously in many instances. But that's what the reality is, folks, that exists. And so Jesus is saying, basically, every man, every person is an inlet and may become the outlet of all there is of God. Every person is meant to be a fountain, not a dam. Okay? So we are not to be dammed up. Okay? And it's the only way that you get damned is of our own doing. So all of us come into this world, and happiness is important. We want to be happy, and that's really it at the bottom line. If we were to say it, we want our children to be happy. We want happiness. And masters and mystics have said that essentially happiness is first discovered within. We have a tendency to want to, make all the pieces right externally to be happy. But the truth is, you can do that all day long or all lifetime long. And ultimately, if you don't really deal with the internal, you won't have happiness. Everything moves from center to circumference. Everything begins from within out. It's always that dynamic. And so it's great to have all the pieces together externally, but it also begins internally. You can be very empty internally, and all things look right externally. And so it's to discover really happiness, and what the Masters and Mystics are talking about is discovering your true identity, and discovering your true nature as a child of God. And it's gaining the realization of this indwelling Lord of your being. We talk about the Christ within. We all have the spark of the divine within. We all have the divinity within, but there is actually a personal Lord within you. And it's referred to as your indwelling Lord, your Christ within, your higher self. The Hindus refer to it as your antriyaman. And so we all have this to connect with and begin to live from. It's always there. We can cover it over with a basket, or we can begin to engage with it and know that this is a dimension of us that is made in the image and after the likeness of God, that wants to be given freedom and open to it. So happiness is, loving yourself, because God is love in you. And it's a flow. It's a flow of love and peace and joy and all of that. So essentially, what is it that blocks the flow? Really, to say it simply, it really comes down to there is nothing that is blocking the flow aside from your mind. A mind that has developed some loyalties to error versus truth. And it has basically separated on out from the truth of who you are. And it's living from the variables of what is true and untrue about you. And the dam that needs to be broken down is the letting go of all that is untrue about you, that you have come to accept. And so, there are thoughts that we have about ourselves, there are thoughts that we have about others, about life, that are not joy and love producing. And it's for us to be able to pull away from those, release them. It's like forgiveness is so important, and so much is made of forgiveness, because not to forgive yourself and others restricts the flow. You are a being of love. That's how light moves through you. So if you're hanging on to stuff in unforgiveness, you're building a dam, essentially, and a big one. Low self-esteem is another, where you hold yourself in a way that is not accurate and true as it is you're held to be in the mind of God. Your mind has created things to focus on where you feel you're not enough, and that's a lie. And so we live from the lies. We have fears that build dams, that essentially we feel we're not capable, or we can't do this or that, or basically fear shuts down love. There's two emotions, right? So again, there are different ways. It's all the activity of the internal, and we have the true source of God that dwells within us, but we can block it in these various ways. And the biggest villain that we face is the past. See, the mind will keep throwing us back into the past, or lugging with us the past of what didn't work, or where we failed, or where we messed up, or whatever. And that's why it's so important to get into the present. In the present is where the light of God shines through. In the present is the only place that you can really feel the energies of God moving through. If you're locked on to yesterday, then you're in trouble. And, I heard Bo Porter, manager of the Astros, they're not doing very well. They're the baseball team we have here in Houston. But I heard him say, if you live in the past, you die in the present. And I love that. And what he's saying as a hitter or a baseball player, if you're not hitting well and you go up there to bat and you're still thinking about having struck out yesterday or the last time up, you're going to die in the present. Because, what are you formulating except that you're not capable, you're not able to do it. You've got to that's a whole new birth and a whole new beginning every time you come to bat. And that's the point. The past can be our villain. And we need to begin to monitor our conversations that we have with others and our conversations with ourselves, our own self-talk as to what is going on. If we're asleep and unaware, we have all kinds of talk going on within the framework of our own mind that is not life-giving, all right? And it's not of the light. And so it's for us to begin to notice and take note of that. There is a saying that goes, you know you are healed when you stop talking about it. You know, there are things that we keep dredging up from the past and lugging with us. You know, something that went wrong in our life, something that didn't work, someone who cheated us, a bad break that we had, a divorce settlement, the missed opportunity, a decision that cost us, whatever it is. And so we set it up in our mind oftentimes as the reason we aren't happy is that this happened. And it's like however long ago that it might have happened. And we know it's not here now, but our mind plays that trick on us. I'm not happy because, and we haven't really let go of whatever that was from our past, and it's keeping us from being happy or prosperous or successful now. We've built a dam, and so we have to listen to ourself and our self-talk. You know, what is the burning issue that you have that you keep talking about? You know, what throws you into upset really easily? What do you have a charge on about? What is it that's happened to you or in your life that you keep sharing over and over with yourself or in your own mind? We know we are healed when we stop talking about it. And this can be even, you know, a pain or an ache or an injury or an illness or some physical condition. For some, that becomes the dominant, consistent conversation, their sufferings or their limitations or their bad breaks. You know, Robin Roberts of Good Morning America, she had cancer, and she is now coming out with a book that is titled Everybody's Got Something. And the point is, if it's not cancer, it's something else. So don't think, you know, everyone has something they're pushing against that they have to heal or get beyond or deepen their faith about and go to the light about. And so I haven't read the book, but I guess it's new and out. Some people like to talk over and over about their conquests in their past. You know, sometimes a person doesn't feel good enough about what they're doing in the present, so they have to keep going into the past to say, I'm really significant, I'm really important. And the thing is, I'm not condemning or judging that. I'm only saying the person needs to realize they are wonderful and they are important, and it's not about their past. It's just the fact, you know, we get to be loved just for being, if you will. We know we are healed when we stop talking about it. Let me give you an example in my own life. Most of you know, I think, that I had a ministry for 7 years in Olympia, Washington, before I came here to Houston. And so I wasn't looking to move, but I was pursued, and we talked, and I came here. And I was hired. And I had been a successful minister, I felt, in my 7 years. I was a young guy. I think I went out into the field when I was 26 or 27 years old or something. I even grew a mustache to make sure I looked a little older, because I looked pretty thin and young. And so when I came here, I was like 32 or 33 years old, and I joined Reverend Sig Paulson, a wonderful man, and his wife, Janie. And so they were, their plan was to stay 2 more years, and then they were going to be going. And so we had negotiated that my title would be co-minister, because I didn't want to come in and be thought of as a young assistant coming right out of ministerial school. I looked young and all that, and I wanted to guard against that. I had worked hard, you know, to establish myself as a veteran minister. And so anyway, the title meant nothing, and nobody heard him say he was co-minister. He might only said it once. But anyway, the congregation would introduce me to other people and say, this is Reverend Caesar, our new young assistant minister. And the hair on my head, on the back of my neck, would raise a little bit, and then I would correct them. And I'd say, no, I'm actually co-minister. I had a ministry for 7 years. I was on the radio a couple of times a week. We had this many people attending. I had an assistant under me. And finally, I heard myself saying this so often that I realized I needed to look at myself, that I must I must not feel adequate here, that I'm worried about what people think. And I reached a point where I faced that. And I said, you know, I'm going to just forget it. I'm going to let it go and go with the flow and just, you know, heal myself. And the way I know I'll be healed is I'll stop talking about it. I'll stop hearing myself, you know, backing myself up like this. And so, you know, those are the things that can happen. And now I don't tell people about how successful I was in Olympia, Washington, unless they ask. It's okay if people ask, but if you have this need, you know, to get that out there, like, I am somebody really, you know, you need to know this. You know, you need to get honest with yourself. So our mind does this kind of thing. It puts conditions on when and if we get to be loved, when and if we are significant or important. It's only the mind. And so that we do all these things and build a dam and lose touch with ourselves. And we lose our authenticity. And we lose a sense of who we are because we are worried about what people will think, and we're trying to be something when we don't have to be. Just who we are is something that's very wonderful. So the question is there something that you keep reminding people of, that you keep bringing up, you know, about your job or about some person in your life? What good deed did you do that you won't let somebody forget that you did it? What miscue or mistake did someone make that you won't let them forget it? What conversations do you have inwardly and outwardly to help you maybe feel superior, to deal with really what is a seed of inferior? So the truth is within us always. Divine intelligence is within us. Anything that dams the flow in us usually has to do with the past. Just think if we had no history, you know, and everything was new. And that's really the way you should begin each day, is asking yourself, what of yesterday or beyond yesterday am I lugging into this day that will dam up the flow of light and divine goodness that wants to find its way in and through me? When you begin a day in the morning, you should begin anew, you know, and you should be taking on this indwelling Lord. There is that verse in 2 Corinthians that says, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away, and behold, all things become new. So there's that dimension of you that you want to embrace. There's the book that I came across just before I went, a couple years before I went into ministry. I found this book, and I had never been introduced to the idea or the thought of reincarnation. And this was a book on reincarnation. It's not important whether you believe it or not in reincarnation, but I bring this up for a reason. In the story of this book, it was by some therapists that took a person and regressed them back. And lo and behold, this lady was very open and was able to be taken into 3 lifetimes. And she was not into believing in reincarnation either. She was very conservative. But they recorded everything, and it was question, answer, question, answer. And so, who are you? Where are you? What's your name? All of that. And they took her back into one life that was in France, and she started speaking French, a language that she had never, ever learned or been introduced to in this current life. When she heard herself on the recording doing that, she was, you know, blown away. But what they did, the reason I mention this is they tried to keep moving the person back. Okay, now you were in, you know, your next life, or you're close to moving and leaving your physical form. And they got this person, this soul, in between lives. And they asked, where are you now? And she said, I'm in a resting place, a resting place. And there are no opinions, no false beliefs, no misperceptions, no sense of separation, only a knowingness. And there was the peace of God and the love of God that surrounded her there. And when they asked her what her name was, she said, I am. That was her name, I am. And of course, you go back to Moses, who should I tell them has sent me? Tell them I am has sent you. And what I'm sharing with you is that there is a place in you where I am lives, okay? And there is that place where there are no attachments to the mind that separates, okay? And as the Bible says, come ye apart and rest a while, okay? And it's to rest in the I am dimension of you, really. You don't have to die to do this, to have this rest. Come ye all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. It's the I am in you that you want to connect to. And so for every breakthrough, there is a grasping of something higher, you know? A grasping of something higher always means that we have to let go of something, okay? Something lower. And it's the same way that the world had to accept we had to grasp onto the idea that the world was round. In order to do that, we had to let go of the concept that it was flat. And really, new generations coming in order to move humanity forward, has to be able to be letting go of something that has been grasped by former generations that do not serve us and are reaching for something that is more accurate and true to evolve the world as a whole really forward. And that is often the role of younger generations to do that in some way. Because as the prophet has said, even if you read the book The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, a tremendously evolved being who passed on in an early age but did some wonderful writings, he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday." Our children are meant to take us forward. And so we should listen to them in many ways, as opposed to clinging to what feels safe and secure because it's old and familiar, all right? And in many ideas and thoughts about life and living, there are people who are stuck. They've built a dam, and life has stopped flowing through them in various ways. We don't want to be like that, and we aren't. You're here because you are in a positive, progressive, and a practical approach to life and living, and you're open to that. In 2 Chronicles it says, "Be not stiff-necked as your fathers were, but yield yourselves unto the Lord." So you're doing that. Nice going, you know. So every man, every person is an inlet and may become the outlet of all there is in God. So I just invite you to ask today and in the days that lie ahead what you may need to let go of. Break the dam that binds you to the past. Let go and go with the flow of God. I want you to repeat after me just to get you started. Okay? Repeat after me. I am an inlet. And choose to become the outlet of all there is in God. Know it, believe it, and be it. God bless you.
Thank you for joining us for today's message. We invite you to be with us again next Sunday. Unity is inclusive, welcoming people of all walks of life in dignity and love. We believe that love, strength, and goodness dwells within you. May we all live in unity with God, humanity, and all of God's creation. And remember, as Reverend Caesar says, life is meant to be good.
When you visit Unity of Houston, you'll find a spiritual community, a church where you can connect and learn and grow with a progressive approach to Christianity. At Unity, we welcome you no matter what your beliefs. You'll find a teaching, loving, inspiring experience as we help each other be all we're created to be. Check us out. We'd love to have you. Find us online at unityhouston.org, and remember, life is meant to be good.